Welcome to the Alien Tech world with this video dedicated to the ECM Titanium advanced features, the software developed by Alien Tech to visualize and edit the original files of the engine control units of cars, motorcycles, tractors, trucks, and boats, as well as gearbox control units. This video is suitable for those who already have basic notions of what ECM is and how it works. In the next 20 minutes, we will focus on modifying the values within the maps using the table, the 2D, and the 3D views. We will learn how to consult the information contained in an original file using the hexadecimal view, how to modify similar original files, to end with a general overview of the Driver Maker plugin. If, on the other hand, you are new to the ECM Titanium software, first try to look at the video dedicated to basic functions. In the previous video, we have already observed a map shown in tabular format, recognizable by the rectangular shape, composed by the numerical values ordered according to a vertical and horizontal axis. ECM Titanium, thanks to its drivers, offers other types of visualizations based on the type of modification to perform. 1. In 2D format, all data in the file is displayed as a two-dimensional graph. This representation is useful to search for new maps to modify. 2. In 3D format, maps are arranged to compose a three-dimensional graph. This view is very useful to modify the shape or the structure of the map. 3. Finally, the hexadecimal one, where all the original file data are contained in boxes organized in rows and columns, sorted from the first cell in the upper left to the last in the lower right. Each box has an address, indicating its distance from the beginning of the file, whose address is 0x000000. We can define this visualization as the most complicated to interpret, considering that it uses a number system based on 16 values, instead of 10 as the classic decimal. However, it turns out to be extremely useful for looking up information stored in the file as ASCII strings, or hexadecimal values. Let's start with a map composed of 6 similar maps, information that we can see at the end of the map name. To open a specific similar map, just right-click on the main map name and choose the related address. Alternatively, open the main map with a double left-click and press the Page Down button until you reach the desired similar one. Then press Enter to start the tuning. By default, the maps always open in the tabular view, the most practical one to modify the values quickly and easily. All the editing functions can be selected both from the top menu under Manual Change and from the bar below with the related icons. In this video, we will always use the icons because they are closer to the boxes in which it's possible to set the increment. For completeness, let's take a look at the menu. Here, we can choose the function but just with a prefixed increment. Returning to the icons, we can see 3 boxes in which we can manually set the increment to apply. The first 2 from the left refers to the same function, adding an absolute value to the selected values in the map, but they are linked to 2 different keyboard shortcuts. In this way, we can apply 2 different increments just by clicking different buttons. The last box is dedicated to the percentage increment, always pre-selected by default. Click on the P icon to temporarily disable it, because we are going to try the other 2 first. The first one is linked to the plus and minus buttons on the keyboard. The second one instead to the page up and page down buttons. Let's try them setting for the plus and minus box an absolute number of 0.5, for page up and page down a value of 5. Let's make a selection in the map, indifferently made by one or more cells. Then press the button on the keyboard. As you can see, each value inside the selected cells has been increased by 0.5. Then, by pressing minus, see that the cells return to the original values. If you notice, after returning to the original values, the cells are colored with the preset gray. As soon as the value changes from the original one, they turn red. Another way to see which cells contain different values from the original is to click on the Differences icon. Let's proceed with the next selection. Press Page Up button and here are our values increased by 5 units. Pressing page down, instead, we have again the original value. So far, very easy, right? Let's proceed with the percentage increment, selecting the P icon and setting a percentage of 15. We select the desired cells before pressing page up to apply the calculated 15% increment. Did you understand why we needed to disable it earlier? If the P icon is selected, the editing function linked to the page up, page down key is the percentage increment, vice versa, the absolute one. Okay, if now we try to press page down, we notice that we did not return to the original values. See that the cells are still colored in red. This happens because the 15% decrease is calculated on the modified value, not on the original one. The other editing functions work on the maximum and the minimum numerical value acceptable for each map. As a reference, you can look at the allowed values indicated after the map name. Let's make a new selection and click on the minimum value icon, identified by the lowercase m. As you can see, the values have been brought to an acceptable minimum. Clicking on the maximum value icon, identified with a capital M, the values increase to the maximum admissible. In case we need to observe the modified cells in this view, we have the increment icon available. By clicking on it, we can see in the modified cells either the percentage of increase applied if the P icon is selected, or the absolute value added to the original one if the P is deselected. In the case of a negative value, it means that the value has been subtracted from the original one. Let's see another feature preset in ECM tutorial: the modification of the axis values. When it is necessary to adjust the reference scale of the axes, just a left click on the desired axis is sufficient to open the editing window from which you can make the modifications. At this point, we have seen all the advanced editing functions. Let's return to the map list. Note that as long as the modified map is not saved, in the main page the square next to the map name is checked but colored in red instead of green. Now we can close the map, clicking on the X. As you can see, ECM Titanium offers several saving options, including the possibility to copy the absolute or percentage increments on similar maps, rather than directly overriding the values obtained on this map on all similar ones. If, on the other hand, we do not want to modify similar maps, as in this case, we select the corresponding option. In this step, ECM Titanium allows you also to cancel all the changes just applied to the map in question, or restore it to its original values. After saving, as you can see, the red square immediately has turned green. Let's go on to see the application of the advanced editing functions just seen applied to the 2D view. In the previous case, we accepted the original file associated with the related driver, which we can define as our orientation guide within the original file. Every time we open a map, the driver leads us to the correct hexadecimal address to allow us to modify it without any effort of interpretation. The question now is, if we don't have a driver available, how can we interpret an original file without a guide? This is precisely the condition in which 2D visualization comes to help us. Let's learn what to do in the case the driver research fails. Instead of clicking on Driver Request, the choice to be made if we want to request Alien Tech technical support, click on Exit. Although the original file is loaded in the original EEPROM panel, notice that the right part of the ECM Titanium main page has remained empty. To search for the maps to be modified in the original file without the driver guide, click on the menu, Modify 2D Graphics. In this window, we have the 2D representation of all the data contained in the original file. Let's scroll through it, using the arrows at the bottom of the page to look for a map to modify. Let's suppose we have now identified a map. If we plan to return to it later, we can note the hexadecimal address on a paper sheet. To return to the same point of the original file, we just need to rewrite the address in the related box. Then click on the Go button. It is also possible to save the registered addresses clicking on one of the 12 buttons in the memo addresses with a short description in a file with the .mem extension to be uploaded later. This panel allows you to automatically record the addresses related to the position of the vertical cursor. Instead, to lock and unlock the vertical cursor from the menu, click on Moves, Lock Cursor, or simply use the key combination Ctrl+S. All the editing functions seen before in the table view are active and available. The advantage, in this case, is that we can see both the curve of the original values, colored in blue, and the curve of the modified values, colored in red. Since we did not change anything yet, now we can only see the red one. Let's try now to immediately increase a selection of values by about 30%, for example. To select a portion of the map, right-click on the start point and repeat the same operation at the end point. Clicking on the buttons dedicated to selections on the right side of the page, you can create selections of the same size by clicking on the green plus icon. If we want multiple selections with different width, after clicking on the same icon, we should deselect the one next to it. As you can see, now we can create a selection with the desired width. To delete the selections made, click on the clear selection icon recognizable with a red X. Once you have finished selecting the values, check that the P icon is selected. Enter 30 in the dedicated box and press Page Up. Do you see a higher red curve has appeared over the original blue one? Let's exit the window by saving the modifications. Now we are going to check out how the 2D view changes when we have a driver associated with our file. Reload an original file with an available driver, accept it, and open one of its maps. To access the 2D format, click on the dedicated icon. In this case, it is evident that ECM Titanium immediately took us to the exact point where the map begins, and unlike before, we also have an arrow ending at the point where the map effectively ends the original file. In addition to the arrows that allow us to move within the original file, we also have other navigation commands, such as these buttons, allowing us to go to the next or previous map address. All this is certainly a big help, but we have seen how ECM Titanium gives us the possibility to modify an original file even in the absence of a driver. Let's select the final portion of the map and apply the maximum increase by clicking on the related icon. With the initial portion of the map instead, apply the minimum increment. Also in this case, as you can see, the curve of the modified file is distinguished from the original one. With the key combination Ctrl+W, you can quickly switch between 2D and table views. Alternatively, we can simply close the 2D window. By clicking on the Differences icon in the table view, you can see all the cells containing the values modified in the 2D chart. Let's close the window to return to the map list and analyze the third type of visualization, the three-dimensional format. Open another map and click on the 3D icon. On the three axes, there are the reference units of measurement. Generally, this view is useful for having an overall view of the map structure to modify. To move in the 3D view, we can use either the navigation buttons in the top panel, or while holding down the right mouse button, we can rotate the graph in a very practical and fast way. Let's apply an increment of 20 units using the Page Up button. To select the values, just click with the left button on a point on the map and drag the selection to the desired point. The selected area will turn green. By clicking Page Up, we see that the graph immediately slightly rises. We select another area of the map and bring it to the maximum acceptable value. In this case, the graph rises sharply, reaching the highest possible point. After closing the 3D view, we will be able to see which cells have been modified because they are colored in red in the table. Let's save and go back to the map's summary. We will conclude this chapter of the video by analyzing the hexadecimal format. To do this, click on the graph icon. This data representation, like the 2D one, is available both for a single map and for the entire original file, with or without a driver. It shows a screen with the values written in hexadecimal numerical base, sorted in rows and columns, with a reference to the related address, which is their distance from the beginning of the original file. This format is extremely useful for searching for brief textual descriptions or identification codes stored in the original file, which are very important for correctly identifying the control unit. To locate data portions within the original file, click on the hex modification icon in the top panel. Click on the ASCII option. This option allows you to search for alphanumeric codes recognizable by any user, with a minimum of 2 characters, but the default selection is 8 characters. Click on Start. On the right, we will see many results, many incomprehensible. Let's scroll to search for those that have meaning for us, such as the software number, the VAG spare part code, or the engine and displacement code. By clicking on the code, ECM Titanium highlights the hexadecimal address of the result found within the original file. If we already know a portion of the information you are looking for, we can also search by a text string. For example, the latest generation Bosch control units have a software code that almost always begins with the string 10SW. Let's try to find it. And here's the full software code. Of course, it is also possible to open a single map in hexadecimal form. Let's open a map and click on the hexadecimal view icon. As for all the other views, it is possible to apply all the editing functions seen up to now except the interpolation. We just need to select the areas to modify, always remembering that the values are in hexadecimal and not decimal basis. We have seen all the possibilities of advanced editing functions performed on an original file. Now is the time to see how ECM Titanium allows us to apply them on a similar original file, a file with a different ID but made up of the same maps or referring to the same driver. To do this, once the modification is complete, we must click on the Summary Increase icon to export a file with the .ind extension. This format is compatible only with ECM Titanium and summarizes all the maps present in the driver, indicating their address, size, and category and marking the modified ones. By clicking on Save, we can store the summary of the increments on our computer. Now, let's open a new original file similar to the previous one. To import the changes, click on Summary Increases, Browse, and select the file you just saved. We can choose whether to apply the percentage or absolute increments. Then click on Apply. Now we can see that the changes have been made automatically in the same maps as the first original file. So far, we have worked on ECM Titanium using official AlienTech drivers. For those of you wishing to create custom drivers, including maps calibrated for more specific needs, AlienTech has developed a specific plugin called Driver Maker, which can be purchased separately from ECM Titanium. Driver Maker is useful for adding maps to official drivers, or for creating completely new ones, to be used exclusively on your own ECM Titanium key. To launch Driver Maker from the ECM Titanium homepage, we must already have an original file open. Click on the dedicated icon and choose Yes on the pop-up to open Driver Maker with the maps included in the official AlienTech driver. No to not consider the official driver and create your map list from scratch. The driver maker window that appears has several panels, each of which with a dedicated function. The first box shows the path of the original and the modified file loaded with ECM Titanium. If no modified file has been loaded, a copy of the original file is displayed in the mod line. The second box shows the 2D graph made up of two traces, the original and the modified one overlying. The traces are formed by a succession of points, whose heights depend on the values found at the respective hexadecimal addresses. You can select a portion of the track by right-clicking twice at the beginning and the end of the map. Do you see that in the box at the top right, once the selection has been made, some addresses have appeared? They refer precisely to the points we have just selected. Under the graphics area, we find the scroll bar together with the zoom and max commands below. Zoom is useful for increasing or decreasing the horizontal zoom of the graph, while max acts on the vertical one. These arrows buttons have a similar function as those present in the ECM Titanium 2D graphic window seen in the previous chapter of the video. They are used to move from map to map, but only work with an official driver, or if we have already inserted maps into our customized driver. Further down, we find the editor, a panel that allows us to consult and edit the parameters of the selected map and its reference axes. The box on the right is dedicated instead to the addresses of all the performed selections and their origin. BLK indicates a selection made from scratch without inheriting the characteristics of an existing map. ORI indicates the selection of a map from the original file, therefore of the starting driver, and MOD indicates the selection of a map inserted on the modified file. The last box at the bottom right is the display panel. All supported number formats and display settings available for the 2D graphics area are grouped here. By changing these settings, the type of display in the graphics area changes. Now that we have made our selection, let's fill in all the necessary information and click on Add button to add the map to the list of those already present. After this operation, an arrow appears above the edges of the registered map, similar to a Map 2D with an AlienTech official driver. With the Ctrl-W key combination, you can quickly switch from the 2D graphics area to the table view, where the entire list of maps already inserted in the driver is also shown. By clicking on the name of a map, its tabular representation is displayed on the right. If we had selected No on the pop-up at Driver Maker starting, once the modification is complete, this list will contain only one item, the map we have just added to the driver. To save the driver, click on Save. To better distinguish the customized driver from the official AlienTech one, let's update the description indicating what we have changed. Then save and close. Remember that the newly saved driver will not be loaded online, but will remain available only within the personal database of the key we used to create it. With this last step, we concluded the video dedicated to the advanced editing functions of ECM Titanium. We have seen all the types of the map and the entire original file visualizations, all the possible value editing functions, how to search for information within a file in hexadecimal form, how to export the changes to a similar original file, and lastly, how to approach the creation of a custom driver through the Driver Maker plugin. If you need to review the basic functions of this software, look at the dedicated video. For all other insights, do not miss the courses developed by AlienTech expert teachers dedicated to all levels of ECM Titanium, from basic to advanced. See you soon!